We're now going to continue with our last speaker, but not the least. We're now going to have a very interesting time going to Malaysia and thinking about the two things, the Islamic world and what is the Malaysian perspective. And we're going to throw ourselves into a new place with new thinking and new ideas, but based on tradition and where can traditions take us. So I'm going to introduce Ahamed Kameel Meera. I hope I'm saying that close enough, Kameel.
Yes, correct.
And I'm going to say Professor Dr. Ahamed Kameel Meera is currently the managing director of the Z Consulting Group. He was a professor in the Faculty of Economics and Management Sciences at the International Islamic University of Malaysia and the Dean of the Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance, International Islamic University of Malaysia. He holds a PhD degree in finance from the University of North Texas in Denton. His undergraduate and master's degrees were in the area of economics from the International Islamic University in Malaysia. His current, or I'm going to get to it because I want him, we've got things to think about and learn. His current research interest is in monetary systems that includes the gold dinar. So we're going to learn, take in some new ideas. If we remember Gaddafi in Libya, he was working on an idea, and maybe we'll learn some differences here and there, or maybe some similarities. He is the author of books, The Islamic Gold Dinar, The Theft of Nations, both published by Palantuk Publications, and Real Money, Money and Payment Systems from an Islamic Perspective, published by the IIUM Press. Professor Meera is the chairman of the Malaysian Monetary Reform Organization. That is the movement for monetary justice in Malaysia. It's an honor and a privilege, and it will be stimulating for all of us. And thank you very much, Dr. Meera. It's good to see you in person. One more note I want to say, very interesting, is I went on their website, and one of the things I've always wanted was how you bring people together. And two things of note that they did that we should be thinking about here. One is they had a debate of the noble versus the least noble or gullible, and how were they going to create a money system? And they had prominent people argue it back and forth, and they had a moderator, and they did it very well. And it's something for us here to think about, that way of communicating. And the second thing too is they did a paper on their government's budget for the following year, and they had commentary. And it was done in a very thoughtful, polite, but also in a critical way at times too. So there was a lot of openness and a feeling of love and concern too. So thank you very much, Ahamed Meera, for being here with us. And the floor is yours now. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, for that kind introduction. Good evening to everyone. I'm actually half across the globe, halfway across the globe. There's a 13-hour difference between us. So it must be a long day for you all. As you can see, the sun is sitting right behind my, on the wall there. So it's basically, it's 8:30 here in the morning. So anyway, thank you so much, Stephen. I will give, a brief introduction to what we are doing in Malaysia, and basically how the monetary system has affected us, and how we can move forward from here. Yeah. So the title that I propose is Lessons from Post-Bretton Woods. global fiat money system and the warranted monetary reforms. So may I share my slides, Steve? Is that okay? Can you all see my slides?
Yes.
Can I?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the title. You see, the Bretton Woods system ended in 1971 or something, 1972. And since then, we know that the world has seen hundreds or even about 400 over economic and financial crises. Yeah. And the frequency of these crises are now increasing or becoming faster. The one actually in year 2020, we were actually expecting another major crisis, like something like the the subprime crisis, mortgage crisis that took place in 2008. But the pandemic came and kind of camouflaged the entire thing, right? So people did not see a crisis happening, but it is actually there. It is actually there. So so what is you see, since 1971, the world has been under fiat monetary system completely. Basically, it's completely under fiat monetary system, because at that time only the dollar was backed by gold. The rest of the countries, they just fixed the exchange rate to the dollar. So when the gold convertibility of the dollar ceased, therefore there is no more any linking to the gold. Yeah. So we have been under the fiat monetary system for the past 50 years. But Malaysia is different. This is a story I would like to tell you all what actually happened in Malaysia. But before that, before I go to Malaysia, now what is the problem? Why? I think probably all of you have discussed this. I mean, and the reason is the monetary system, or it does not, aggregates of money does not grow in tandem with the real economy. Once it is no longer linked to anything real, that means there's no backing. You notice that money is now is mostly created by the commercial banks, commercial banks in the form of debt. So therefore, you notice money and debt normally grows exponentially for almost any country. This is one exercise I always give my students when I was teaching. To choose any country, get the monetary aggregates, and then look at the real economic growth, and then use some econometric methods to estimate the growth rates of both. And you'll always find the monetary system aggregates and also the debt in the economy to grow exponentially. So they go off tangent compared to the real economy. So that actually creates a number of problems. It's inflation. And when the money grows in a certain sectors, like let's say housing sector or stock market, then we see bubbles in those sectors. We see housing bubble or stock market bubble or .com bubble and so on. So basically a bubble is actually an inflation in that sector. And it also causes a widening gap in the income and wealth distribution that we have noticed. Why? Because most of the newly created money, which is basically private, today, most of the money is created by the commercial banks. Yeah. So the commercial banks normally gives loans to whom? It's basically those wealthy people are seen to be credit worthy. And therefore it is they and the businesses which they own that normally gets the newly created money. So therefore, this creates a widening gap in the income and wealth distribution gap. So this is by structure then. What we see globally is by structure of the monetary system. So whenever we have a fiat monetary system that is based on interest, the way we have it, and is created by private entities, I tell them you're sure to see a widening gap. You will definitely to see poverty, even how advanced the country is, because this is by the structure of the monetary system itself. So this is the fundamental cause of the problems that we see. But what are the areas that we see is here. We have evidences for all this. This is what the earlier slides showed, and these are the effects of that. Economy, we see inflation, the gap in income and wealth distribution, rising cost of living. It has effects on agriculture, and also homes become unaffordable, right? And for the society, the moment you have a rising cost of living and also a gap in wealth and income, you will see crime levels in those societies. Crime will be rising. Yeah. When I did my master's in it, this is the work I did, the relationship between crime levels and economy. And it's a very interesting, observations that I found. And also on environment, you notice, the pollutions, destructions, and climate change. Normally, it comes from the interest component of it, because the interest component in an economy cannot be repaid in full because it does not exist in the form of money. Therefore, you tend to plunder. For example, here in Malaysia, we have nice rainforests, but we tend to, cut down all the trees and increase the deforestation in order to pay the interest portion of our international loan. If you are a country with the oil reserves, you will tend to, extract more oil because you need to pay because ultimately the interest portion of any loan can be only repaid in real terms, because only the principal is moving in the economy and creating economic activities, but the interest portion does not exist in the form of money. So it has to be paid in real terms, yeah? So it has environmental implications because of that. Politics is very well known. It will create a lot of, a loss of sovereignty of many countries that borrow international, particularly, and you'll see conflicts and wars. And now we are moving towards a totalitarianism. This is where I believe this pandemic is taking us towards a creation of a totalitarian global system. So it all comes from the root, which is what is financing it behind is the monetary system. And I would like to talk about one interesting effect of this system is the shrinking population that we observe in most countries. Yeah, and Elon Musk has been talking about this recently, and I've done some research for some other countries earlier, and that causes aging problem, and also in the future labor shortages. This all have economic implications too. All right. So this is, so we see a lot of these problems from animating from this structure. Look at this Malaysian data. It's very absurd, actually. You look at, this is the M1 for Malaysia, the monetary aggregate. In year 2020, our real GDP was 350 billion, yeah? 350 billion. But you see the M1, the monetary aggregate, even the M1 itself is larger than our real economy. Can you believe that? So it's why? Because we just create money out of nothing. The commercial sectors are creating money out of nothing, and they have even created more than the size of the economy itself. From equation of exchange, we have monetary aggregates multiplied by the velocity of money circulation equals to the nominal GDP, or price times the T, which is the real GDP. So the price level times the real GDP gives M times the V. And here, the M itself is larger than the nominal GDP. Can you believe that? M times the P times Y, we call it, yeah? So this is a serious problem, which means our monetary aggregates have been rising faster than the real GDP. You see, for last 5 years, the M1 and also the M3 rising at almost 10%, 9.65, but the real GDP is only about 3%. So what will happen to the difference? It all will show up in the form of inflation, bubbles, and so forth. So look at this housing data that I'll just show you for the Malaysia average. The monthly median income is 5,000 ringgit, Malaysian ringgit. But the median price of a home is 313,000. And the median multiple affordability is 5 times. This is a 2016 data. And we have already, another 5 years we have passed, and we are now more than 5, the median multiple. And we know for affordability, it has to be 3 and below. That means 36 months of your monthly income is considered to be affordable, right? And this is more than 5 years. And therefore, homes have become severely unaffordable in Malaysia. An undergraduate student who graduates, his income is only about 2,000 ringgit. Well, even though the Malaysian average is 5, new graduates income is only 2,000. And they are placed under poverty level. Imagine that you are the best in the country, you are graduating from a university, and yet when you go to the job market, you're under the poverty level. And the access to homes are simply, mostly unaffordable, yeah? And you can also see the Malaysia's household debt to GDP has surged to a new peak of 93.3%. BNM is our central bank. So this is from a central bank report. So the household debt is also rising. And if you look into other, you also notice not only household debt is rising, the overall debt of businesses rising, the overall debt of government rising. So in accounting, we know that, look, here households, we have businesses and the government. Almost everyone in the economy is covered here. So for every debtor, there must be a creditor, right? From logically in accounting. So who are the creditors in the system then if everyone is becoming debtors? So you know that who are the creditors? It's basically, it is the banking system that we have given the right to create money out of nothing and give out to these households, businesses, and governments at interest, compound interest. So the banking system is the creditor of the entire system. So basically what we are showing is that the whole thing is making the economy and the monetary system unsustainable. So logically now, United Nations and everyone is talking about sustainable development, because everyone can see, hey, we can't go on like this. So we put, okay, we want no poverty, number one, zero hunger, number two, good health and well-being. All these are, yes, nice, beautiful things, but are these achievable with the current system that we have? That is the question, yeah, we pose. But we think there need to be two more goals if you really want to achieve those 17 goals. Without these two, we, from Movement for Monetary Justice in Malaysia, we think it's unachievable. It is just a wishful things. Maybe you might be able to achieve here and there a little bit, but overall you will not be able to solve the problem. We think one is you need to go back to real money system. I'll come to that in a moment. In other words, it's some form of gold standard, and it has to be interest-free. Okay, I will highlight that in a moment why. And at the same time, you need to also concentrate on the spirituality and character building. This is another important, in the past, in real economic system, the human history, spirituality and knowledge were given a higher status than someone who's wealthy, for example. If you are highly spiritual, if you are a highly knowledgeable person, you are valued or placed higher in society than even a wealthy person. But today is all different. People ask whether you are rich, how much of money you have. They don't even ask how you get it. Yeah, the more money you have, the more respect that you gain in the society. So this creation of this, that's the reason. Look at our leaders. Almost in any country, I don't think we have real statesmen nowadays. We have mostly leaders with character problems, and and this is so the importance of education, preschool education, and character building are important if you really want to achieve all these 17 goals. Bernard Leiter, the author of the book The Future of Money, yeah, he wrote in his research, finally he made a conclusion: the missing link to sustainability is money. What we define as money. So I think he was spot on, in recognizing money is the missing link to sustainability. So so the fiat money, what is causing the unsustainability? It comes from three characteristics of the monetary system. One is fiat money, which is not linked to or backed by gold or anything. Then the fractional reserve banking system that simply creates money out of nothing, just through accounting process, and charges compound interest on that. So these are the three characteristics that we need to actually observe or focus on. Yeah. Now let me show you how this system has affected Malaysia now. Then another one I'd like to discuss in this region, how it has affected this region and globally. Some important, one is how it has affected politically in Malaysia. The second one is I would like to discuss a little bit on the, how it is affecting the demographics in the world, particularly the shrinking population. See, this is an old picture of traders who arrive on the shores of Malaysia and they are trading. This is a Chinese trader. This is an Arab trader. This is a Javanese trader from Indonesia. And they are trading by the seashore. At that moment, these were the kind of coins or money they were using. This is gold coin. So two major forms of money at that time is what the ringgit. This is the original ringgit. So it says the state settlement. Even though the word is $1, a dollar that time is actually the Malay word is a ringgit, which is the current. So to differentiate the American and US dollar and Malaysian currency, now we use the word ringgit rather than the dollar, okay? It's a 20-gram pure silver coin. With this one coin, one could at that time buy about six chickens, yeah? And this is the gold coin that was also circulating at that time. It's called a kupang, yeah? It was 0.6 gram of pure gold. Okay, so this basically bimetallism. So these two kinds of coins were the main money when tradings were taking place. So what has happened today in the timeline? In 1786, after Malaysia was colonized by the British, we were colonized by the British for a number of years, yeah? Now, Britain declared in 1826, Penang, which is a small island from where I come from, and Malacca and Singapore. Singapore was part of Malaysia at that time. Many people, they do not know that, yeah? Or Malaya, then it was known as Malaya. So Penang, Malacca, and Singapore as trade settlement. That means the settlement where the British controls the legislation and the administration of those places. Yeah. So state settlement, these three were actually ports. Those times there were no aeroplanes and things like that. So the sea route and control of the sea routes were the dominant, So superpowers will always try to control the dominant trade routes. So Malaysia is a peninsula, and there is a strait between Indonesia and Malaysia. There's a Straits of Malacca, and that used to be until today a very dominant or important sea trade route. Yeah. So so even today, the US and China are trying to control it now, because these are the two powers now. So they're trying to control the Straits of Malacca. So and Britain at that point declared Penang, Malacca, and Singapore three major ports, yeah, as a state settlement. And they introduced something new, which Malaysians never knew, that is paper money. So they brought in this mercantile bank. Later it came to be known as Hong Kong Bank, and later Hong Kong and Shanghai banking, yeah. So they started to issue pieces of paper, which is bank notes, as money, ringgit. So imagine traders earlier, they had to use real coins as money, but now they just print the papers and say, this is the ringgit now. So very fast, the economic dominance and trade dominance were flipped. So they immediately started to control the trade. Then 1875, the Chartered Bank came into Penang. And then, but in 1921, the right to issue private banknotes by these banks was terminated, and the Board of Commissioners of Currency, Malaya, was established. Now, what I'm trying to show here is that the fiat money, while most of the countries like the US went into fiat, complete fiat in 1971 when the Bretton Woods collapsed, in Malaysia, we were under fiat monetary system from 1860, actually, more than 100 years earlier, yeah? Only in 1959, the Central Bank of Malaysia was established. Can you imagine that? Yeah. So you can imagine in the 100 years under complete fiat monetary system, it created so much of imbalance, the social imbalance between races and so on, that on May 13, 1969, it created a racial riot because the initial people who were controlling the Malays, who were controlling the political structure in the country, were losing it. So after these riots, the government had to put in a new economic plan in order to correct that imbalance. Yeah. And the system actually still continued, the paper money system, the banking system, creating the money and so forth. Until in 1997, the East Asian currency attack, the East Asian economic crisis happened. Remember the Malaysia and like South Korea, Thailand, and Indonesia, we were attacked by currency speculators and completely we were devastated. From that point onwards, 1997 until today, we in Malaysia actually economically, we are just regressing. It created so much of political problems. You might have heard about between the Prime Minister then was Mahathir Mohamad. Then there were also, his deputy was Anwar Ibrahim, and there were conflicts. Until today, the conflict goes on. So we are just regressing since then. This was when I came back from the US after getting my PhD, and I studied what is going on, and that's when I realized the flaws in the monetary system, that we need to correct this flaw, or else we are just going to go down and down and down. Yeah, so this crisis opened my eyes. Yeah. So this is a map of just to show you. You are somewhere here. Chicago and the US. Yeah, Chicago is here. This is UK, and this is Malaysia, the yellow portion, China, and this is the South China Sea that has become the area of conflict between China and the US and others right now. And then this is the Straits of Malacca. This white island is the Sumatra island of Indonesia. So Penang, Malacca, and Singapore are right here. Yeah, so I'm actually, you can see I'm halfway across the globe. Okay. So give you an idea of what the British issued. This is the kind of note in the early last century. Yeah, and this is King George VI, British ruler of the time. See, this is 10,000 ringgit note, just a piece of paper, 10,000 ringgit. At that time, 100 years ago in this country, one could have a meal, like a lunch, just for 1 cent. Today, to have a similar lunch, you need 10 ringgit. This is only 1 cent. Now you need 10 ringgit, which means the purchasing power of this note is equivalent to 10 million ringgit of today. Even though it's 10,000 ringgit, the purchasing power is equivalent to 10 million ringgit of today. 10 million ringgit can buy you 10 bungalow houses in Malaysia. Beautiful bungalow houses. So that is the kind of sinoraj, this kind of currency notes were giving. You see, so that is now, just to give you an idea of what is happening in Malaysia. So I've told from Movement of Monetary Justice, we're telling, unless we do a monetary reform, this country is going to go down and down, and it's going to create more, problems between the people, and also it's going to create more political problems. So this is the reason why it's important that we address and solve this issue. It can be solved. I'll come to that in what we are proposing for solutions in a moment. Now, another important, another important effect of this monetary system is on the population, shrinking population that I mentioned, faced by many nations. It has become serious for countries like South Korea, Taiwan, Japan, Singapore, even entire Europe, yeah, and so on. Now we know. I like to discuss here how the monetary system is actually causing it. All right. Now, number one, the thing is, the demographic experts tell us that for society to sustain itself, the fertility rate needs to be at least 2.11. What is a fertility rate? Now, we are not talking about medical infertility or things like that. Okay, fertility rate is the number of children born to a woman of childbearing in her childbearing years. eh? So the average needs to be 2.11. This is the replacement rate. So that means you must have at least on average 2.11 children. Okay. So if you have below this, then the population will start to shrink. If you have larger than this, then population will rise. Which means what we are saying is that many countries in the world are having a replacement rate below this. And the same experts are telling us if the fertility rate has gone to 1.3, it is irreversible. It's irreversible. That means the society will just shrink and will ultimately will just disappear. In other words, you will need immigrants to come in and save the economy or the country. So a healthy distribution of population will look like this. This for Nigeria. So as you can see, this is the younger age, 0 and 4. And you go up here is the old age, and this is 100 years of age. So the pink is the female, and the blue males. So you see the distribution. So they are more the younger ones. They are more younger generations compared to the older one. So it will create a pyramid like this. But once you start to face problem, like for example for Japan, in 1950s it is a nice pyramid, a healthy pyramid. Then you see it turns to become like a kite in 2005. That means it's facing problem. You see the younger generation is now becoming smaller than the older generation. In 2055, it is expected to be a reverse triangle, which means it's a really problem. You see, so they have aging problem. That means there are more older people than the younger ones. You see, why? If you see for the whole world, in 1960s, the average for the world used to be five children per a woman of a childbearing age, but now it is only 2.5. Still high, but mostly comes from the developing nations, like Africa, Indonesia, and so on. Yeah, excuse me. So many other countries like East Asia, North America is only 1.8. The European Union is only 1.6. They're all falling. Yeah. So why it is happening? If you see when I discussed on the effects of the monetary system earlier, one is it causing rising cost of living, food, utilities, education, health, transportation, and so on, including rearing children. Cost of rearing children has gone up. And the other thing is the retirement cost of retirement is rising. For Malaysia, most of people, when they retire, they do not have enough money to actually completely go through their retirement age comfortably. Their savings will be depleted just in a couple of years, within 5 years, but they expect to live another 20 to 30 years, you see. So retirement, cost of retirement also rising. And when you see homes, the homes are becoming unaffordable nowadays. I showed you the data earlier. And the size of homes are becoming smaller and smaller, and the loan duration, when you take a loan to pay the home, is becoming longer and longer. When my father took a housing loan, he paid back within 7 to 10 years, I remember. When I took, it became 20 years. The new generation takes 35 years to pay a loan, and is now becoming 2-generation loans. In other words, a father takes the loan and it continues, and the children continue with it. Many 2 generations. And also on income, the household's debt is increasing. Imagine your household, your own debt is increasing, the homes are unaffordable, the retirement cost is rising, So people tend to have less children because of this. Many do not want to even get married or even to have children. So this causes aging society, labor shortages, national security issues. Because if you have too many old people in your country, then it will become a national security issue too, So these are the effects that is actually causing. People do not seem to know where it is emanating from. Basically, it is the structure of a modern money system. So if I may make a statement, financial inclusion is generally good, but financial inclusion within the interest-based fiat money system seems deadly for societies because over long run, most people are likely to become net borrowers, where they have to face with the trade-off between having children and having a good life and retiring comfortably. So you need to make a choice. Do you want to live comfortably, or you want to have children and face problem in later years? Is it? Mr. Rainer Strack from from Germany, I guess, yeah. So he, in one of the TED Talks, he had this data, forecasted. Now is in 2020, see, this is forecasted labor crisis, shortages. So Germany is already negative or not enough even by 2020. The blue ones are still okay, yeah. But by 2030, which is only one decade, almost the entire world will have a labor shortage. Most industries will find you do not have enough people to work. You see, so why? Because there's a shrinking population, and you're having an aging, society. So Lee Kuan Yew, the former Prime Minister of Singapore, in his book One Man's View of the World, he said, "Is there a country in this world that prospers on a declining population? If I had to identify one issue that threatens Singapore's survival the most, it would be this one. I cannot solve the problem and I have given up." You see, he himself says, "I cannot solve the problem and I have given up." And to the later generation of leaders. And he says Singapore will fold up if its citizens do not procreate. So he's a very intelligent man. You see, he could see that the major problem is not the economy or anything else, but it's actually the shrinking population. And sure enough, Elon Musk also, he seemed to have identified this. In my opinion too, this is the major problem. Because if the population keeps shrinking in the future, so what economic progress, or what are we going to talk about? An economic progress for whom, right? So this is the number one problem the world is facing. There was in South Korea, the government initiated a conference just to address this problem. And I presented a paper there to show that it is actually the monetary system that is behind it, with all the data and survey, survey of the society and so on. Japan is trying to solve the problem through robotics. You see, like this picture shows a hotel in Japan that is completely staffed by robots, 100%. If you go there, you see a dinosaur is the receptionist, and there'll be muscular-looking robots waiting there to carry your bag to the room, and so you're trying to solve the labor shortage problems using robotics. But in the future, as people die and so on, you cannot have the entire country completely, completely filled with robots, right? So this is the issue that, that means we are not solving the problem, addressing the root of the problem, yeah? So if I may say, aging society is predominantly a systemic structural problem. It is created by the very structure of the modern money system itself. And we must address this urgently if we want to save the civilization of all these countries. It's important. So interest-based fiat money system, therefore, it transfers wealth and power of individuals, companies, and governments to those who control money. If you notice what is happening throughout the world, it is transferring wealth and power to those who control money. So wealth and power are the two domains of political economy, right? So in the classical history, if someone goes to a war or battle and wins the war or battle, this is what you will gain. You'll gain wealth and power, control over the resources of the nation and control of the people there. But the same thing you can gain through fiat money, interest-based system. You can get without any war, without battles. Yeah. So the fundamental problem with the present monetary system is, what is it? We have actually mixed virtual wealth with real wealth. If you look at a financial statement, right, of any company on this thing, you have cash, you have assets and so on, yeah? You have, the cash is actually virtual, it's not real. It's the rest, the buildings you have, the machineries, the stock the inventory that you have, these are all real. But the money that you put as cash or cash in the bank, these are actually virtual assets. That virtual asset does not conform to the labor theory of value. This is the major problem. We are mixing two, So what is wrong with having a virtual wealth like a dollar or ringgit? The problem is when you do not define what a dollar or like in the Bretton Woods system, you define, $35. I mean, is equal to 1 ounce of gold. I mean, right, and so on. When you do not define like that, there is no measure of value. There is no stable measure of value in economy. What do I mean by that? Now, if I say I have a 1 meter ruler, that 1 meter is a constant across time and space. 1 meter in America is same as 1 meter in Malaysia. 1 meter yesterday is same as 1 meter today. Same as a kilogram. A kilogram in the US is same as a kilogram in Malaysia. No? And also across time. But when we say a dollar is a measure of value, I'm valuing my the house using dollar, valuing the inventory I'm selling using dollar, it is not a constant, but it is a measure of value we are using. So constantly you see there's a exchange fluctuations in the exchange rate because these are not constants. You see, so that non-constant of a measure of value is creating a lot of volatility in this in the economic system. Nobel laureate Alexander Mandl, Robert Mandl, he identified that volatility, a lot of volatility in stock markets and economies, they actually emanate from come from the volatility of the exchange rates. So this is the problem because there's no measure of value. So coming to solutions, so how do we solve this? Remember the graph I showed, a lot of issues that I showed. The monetary system is going off tangent, exponential like this, while the real economy grows something like this. You need to make the monetary sector and the real sector move in tandem, parallel to each other. How do you do that? Two important things that we need to address. First is money has to become real also. So this is why you need the linking between the goal. Why a lot of economists are talking about a gold standard, go back to gold standard and so on. First is money itself has to become part of the real economy. So the money itself got to be real first. Next is we must actually abolish interest charges, just like the Judeo-Christian and Islamic traditions. Interest charges are the reason why you see this exponential function. If you take a loan, remember this is a very well-known formula, very well-known formula. What you pay by future value of a loan is the present value, the principal amount you take as loan, 1 plus I, the interest rate, to the power of n is the time period. So this is an exponential function. That is the reason why you see money and debt growing like that. Okay, so interest charges, actually the compound interest causes this exponential nature of debt and money in the system. Yeah, so you need to address all these three. So if we address real money and interest charges, it solves the three problems that I mentioned earlier: fiat money, fractional reserve banking, and also the interest charges. Yeah. So in technically, these are the two things. The monetary structure needs this. One is real money, use of real money concepts instead of the fiat money, and a risk-sharing principle, which means there should be no risk-free investments like interest rate. Interest charges are called risk-free. So the risk-free portion creates a lot of problem in the economy. So we need to go towards equity basis of financing and other types of risk-sharing arrangements. So we, at Movement for Monetary Justice, we recognize this can be a very far-fetched, what do you call that, a long shot, so to speak. It's not easy that, okay, everyone will agree, yes, gold is the way to go, or let's do away with interest. No, it's not something, it's easier said than done, yeah? So we look at what is possible, what can we do at the present, this thing. So we have our targets like this. We are now at this level 1 here. Is fiat money issued predominantly by the commercial banks. We need to move from here and give some power to the government to create money. So that's why we have public banking. We support public banking, right? Move towards money 100% issued by the government. So we will support sovereign money. Sovereign money is, entire money is issued by the government. That means the power to create money is vested with the government alone. So we call this sovereign money. Public banking, it is both. It can be private sector creating money, and also the government has its own bank. Yeah. So you have an institute, Public Banking Institute in California by Alan Brown. I think that's a good idea. And therefore, we also support MMT, like Howell was saying. We also support this more modern money theory concepts, where the government creates whatever money that's needed and use a taxation as a means to control inflation if the spending created some inflation in the system. Yeah. And finally, banks will convert the banks to become asset managers and not money creators. Just like a mutual fund managers, you have to mobilize savings of the people, and you don't create money, and then you manage that for your investors. So that's how banks should finally evolve into. So the low-hanging fruit for us today is public banking. So in Malaysia, we are just pushing the public banking concept right now. And slowly we will go into the sovereign money, where the 100% is by the government creation of money. The next is we go for 100% digital money. That means there will be no more physical dollars and coins, but 100% digital money, but by government. We are not so keen on CBDC, the central bank digital currencies, because it will be, again, in our opinion, it will be still strengthening the current banking system of money creating, and it will actually speed up the process of moving towards totalitarianism. It's CBDC. This is our view. Okay, so what we are saying is 100% digital money that is by government. What good is that? 100% digital money. Then and the entire sinorage of creating money will go to the government, and the government will use for public spending rather than debt, just like Howell was mentioning just now. We are completely in line and support that. So government will create money and spend for schools, welfare, infrastructure, and so on. And also, once it's 100% digital money, bribery, corruption, misappropriation of funds, tax evasion, all will become difficult. Therefore, the revenue for government will increase because of this. You will start to collect more taxes. So you can reduce the tax rate. Yeah. And since the government has the right to create money, then your tax is no longer your predominant or dominant revenue, but rather you will use the taxation to just control the inflation and so forth. And we are supporting a netting arrangement. Once you have a netting arrangement, then there will be no shortage of liquidity in the system. It's just like a credit, just like the local exchange trading schemes, just like the bilateral and multilateral trade arrangements that central banks do. We bring that to the B2B and B2C, so that there will be no more shortage of liquidity. Because in every recession, you notice that the country goes into a recession because of destruction to liquidity. That's why governments, they do quantitative easing and pump in money or reduce the reserve requirement and so on in order to do expansionary monetary policies. Yeah. So we are suggesting that the government operates a netting system also. So this is level 3. Yeah. And finally, we go to a gold-backed money system. So gold-backed, the entire thing like this, but gold-backed and with cryptocurrencies with netting arrangement. Basically the same system, but gold-backed. So gold is our final target. You may be wondering, a lot of people don't see the importance of gold. They say, no, gold is not necessary and so forth. Yeah. I'll tell in a moment why it's important. Now, this is what is happening in Malaysia. There's already a lot of like e-wallets and gold-based e-wallets and payment systems are now mushrooming. It's coming. Excuse me. Alexander, the Nobel laureate Robert Alexander Mandl said actually he said this in 1997 before he got his Nobel prize, that gold would make a comeback in international monetary system in the 21st century. This is a foresight of a monetary expert. Why is he saying gold? We'll come to that again. And now he is still, saying that. You see, this is June 14, 2021. In Forbes, he said, Professor Mandl urges gold convertibility for the euro, the currency which he fathered, as well as for the dollar. So he's telling, go back to gold. See, just like Bernard Leiter was saying, money is the missing link to sustainability. So if the US, for example, goes back to gold again, like kind of linking, then a lot of this, the comparative advantage, trade comparative advantage lost to China and others will come back to the US. Then it will create a lot of employment opportunities and so forth. Yeah. So why gold again also? Sir Isaac Newton, all of us know, the one who was supposed to have discovered gravity, right? He was once in the board in the Bank of England. And there were some movements towards, fiat money. No more with gold and gold linking. So he opposed that. So when people ask why opposing, this was his beautiful answer. In applied mathematics, one needs to define one's unit. So if you say it's a dollar, what is a dollar? What is a dollar, for example? If you say a dollar is 1/35 ounce of gold, okay, it makes sense. Okay, that is the dollar. Today, I can't define what is the ringgit. What is a dollar? What is a euro? You can't define. Yesterday it could buy you this. Today it can't buy you that. The same thing, And after Robert Zoellick, after the former president of World Bank, 2 years after the subprime crisis, he said group of 20 leading economies, the G20, should consider adopting a global reserve currency based on gold as part of structural reforms to the world's foreign exchange regime. So why gold again? You see, why these experts are all saying go back to gold again? Same as Mahathir, recently, this is the first in a year after the 1997-98 East Asian economic crisis. So Mahathir also talked about going back to gold, but it didn't happen. Yeah, politically, because international pressure not to, and from international pressure not to implement that. But even after when he became the prime minister for the second time in 2018, recently, he made the same thing again. Mahathir proposes common East Asia currency, back to gold again. So everyone is looking for some kind of stability here, stability. But historically, gold-backed systems failed. For example, Bretton Woods. Why did Bretton Woods fail before? All the gold standards, why did they fail? If you look back, it's always because the anchor currency governments did not adhere to the rules. They print more paper money than the amount of gold or convertibility could support. So therefore it just collapses. So how do you prevent this? So to prevent this, the measure of the value should be gold itself. That means if I import, let's say, cotton from the US, I must tell that much of cotton is equivalent to how much of gold, not the dollar or ringgit or the fiat currencies, where it is not really a measure of value. But if I say it is a certain amount of gold, then it matches, it becomes a measure of value. So the success of this gold payment system or stability can be only achieved when we start to price things in gold or silver or any real thing. If we still price in national currencies in dollar or ringgit or yen or any, then you will see volatility will be still there. Yeah, the volatility will be still there. Okay. So even Trump, if you remember, he was trying to put Judy Shelton in the Federal Reserve, the author of the book Money Meltdown. And she's known for her advocacy for return to the gold standard. And in fact, Trump also minted gold coins and silver coins with his face on it, a picture on it. To me, all these are signals that he was trying to take America back to the gold standard or some form of gold standard, because that will actually bring back a lot of economic, these lost advantages to China and others, competitive advantages will come back. Yeah, but unfortunately now it's a history. So, but just to show you that actually, in my opinion, he was moving towards that. Yeah. So that is the reason why we are, and gold is very much in line with Islamic concepts of money. In Sharia, the Islamic law, the trade is based on the gold and silver as the monetary standards. Yeah. Now that's one. But the fiat monetary system has created so much of imbalance throughout the world. If you want to do a reform today, we cannot just only solve the money part. There are three other issues here. One is high debt levels. As you notice, household debts, the government debt, the business debts are all high. Asset ownership. A small elites are controlling vast wealth of the world. Asset ownership issues. And also not enough liquidity in the system. Even though there's so much of fiat money, the money is concentrated in a small group of people. But the rest of the economy is facing lack of money. That's why the economy goes into recession, even though there's so much of money in the system, because the money is concentrated in the hands of few people. So we need to solve all these three issues if you want to do a monetary reform, a complete monetary reform. Yeah, not only solve the the public banking or all those things. So how do you address these three? Of course, we need to do. Number one is debt cancellation or debt jubilee. The globe needs a debt jubilee now. Otherwise, the problem will worsen, because most of the loans are created out of nothing by the banking system. So we need to correct that by debt cancellation. And it also created a huge disparity in wealth distribution. So therefore, a redistribution of wealth is also important. And number three, you correct the monetary system that we mentioned. Real money systems, it has to be interest-free and netting system. If you do these three, it's like resetting the economy again. It's a complete reset. Okay. Now, how can we do the debt cancellation? There are a number of ones. One is loan moratoriums. For example, now after the COVID pandemic, it has devastated the economy terribly, whole world, including Malaysia. The SMEs, the small and medium enterprises and households, simply asking the government or the bank, please just push our repayment of the loan 6 months later without charging any interest. So that's a loan moratorium. Last year it was given, but this year the banking system doesn't want to agree to that. So therefore, in my opinion, if you don't give, the economy will go further down and down, because a lot of people are facing cash flow problems. Businesses are in it, because especially the lockdown, when you put a lockdown, it stops the circulation of money and destroys liquidity in the economy. So once liquidity is destroyed, that's why the government must come in and pump in money. The stimulus packages are important, But the moment a loan moratorium is not given, many businesses might be lost forever. Okay. Number two is at least give an interest cancellation. Pardon the interest portions of the loan, only require the principal to be repaid. This is the Islamic type. In Islamic type, you are actually required to pay back only the principal. Interest is forbidden to be charged on loans in Islamic law. Yeah. Or the third type is a complete total debt jubilee. That means all public and private debts, principal loan, the interest, all are cancelled. So this is the Judeo-Christian type, the biblical type. Yeah. And the last one is the complete economic reset that I mentioned earlier. You give a total debt jubilee like the Judeo-Christian type and reallocate wealth and even introduce a new currency, like what was done by Germany after the World War II. If the Germany was asked to repay the war debt, most likely it will be a third world country until today. But because it was given a debt jubilee and a new currency was introduced, then you saw a miracle, economic miracle of the German. Yeah. So this is, but in my opinion, Malaysia and many countries, we need an economic reset. And I don't know how it can be done, but even our banks are not even giving a moratorium, let alone the Islamic type of, solving the debt problem or the Judeo-Christian debt jubilee. Yeah? But I think we need to go to number 4, economic reset, the way I see the goal. A good book to, read about that is Michael Hudson's book, The Lost Tradition of Biblical Debt Cancellation. No, it's a good, and I can just, in extreme economic situation or collapse, like what we are actually facing in Malaysia, a total cancellation of all public and private debt is necessary now. Basically, I'm calling for a reset of the Malaysian economy. Yeah. So Michael Hudson says in his book, radical as the idea of cancelling debts and restoring the population's means of subsistence seems to modern eyes, it had been a conservative tradition in Bronze Age Mesopotamia for some 2 millennia. Which means to us, well, debt cancellation sounds very, radical, but it has been happening all the time. Even IMF and World Bank constantly, periodically they give debt cancellation to these borrower countries. So it's nothing new actually. Here's one article that appeared in our last year in November in our business daily called The Age. Yeah? I'd like to highlight 3 points about what this writer mentioned on debt jubilee. These 3 here. When debts grow too large to be repaid, without reducing debtors to poverty, the way to hold society together and restore balance is simply to cancel the bad debts. You see, otherwise it will just reduce the debtors to poverty. And in history, without debt jubilee, there was a danger of kingdoms falling. And this also applies now. So you see, in many countries from US, Malaysia, and many, including even Japan, the public debt and the household debt, the business debt is so high, we're actually in the danger of the society, civilization collapsing economy. So you need to give a debt jubilee, redistribute wealth, and give everyone a clean slate and start the economic life again. This is what is now necessary for most of the world, in my opinion. And we can see the German debt jubilee in 1948 created the German economic miracle. See? They also introduced a new currency at that time. All right. So it's time to recognize that many debts now cannot be repaid through no fault of the debtors in the face of today's COVID-19 induced economic disaster. So more so after COVID-19, we need a monetary reform. Yeah. Now, for the long-term solution to pursue, what we at the Movement for Monetary Justice we are doing is that not only we are looking final target on the monetary side is goal-backed, but an endowment-based economy. The term used for endowment in Islamic Sharia is wakaf, an endowment-based economy. That means more endowment, where a lot of public expenditures like for infrastructure, road building, bridges, and so forth, schools, hospitals, mostly funded by endowments. So anyone who is sick is easily financed. You don't have tolls, at the highways, and this has been actually a tradition in Islamic history. If you go to Istanbul in Turkey, and you walk around in Istanbul, you will observe there'll be some food, like cat food, dog food, placed by the streets. These are food for the stray dogs and stray cats in that city, Istanbul. So you might be wondering who is putting this? Someone is putting this food. It is actually there's an endowment working behind it. The endowment every day places the food for stray cats, stray dogs. Imagine if there's an endowment working for stray cats and dogs. What about humans? Yeah. So under the Islamic system of Turkey, a lot of education and everything, is covered through endowment. So the endowment gives a complete social security for every person, you know. So you don't have to worry about anything actually. Even excess food, that we throw away, the garbage, the food. There is endowment for all this food waste to be collected and taken to the jungle, and they place it in some area of jungle for the jungle animals, so that everything is not wasted. So basically, through endowment, we move towards a gift economy rather than today's debt-based economy. The fiat money is creating a debt-based economy where everyone becomes a debtor in the system finally, creating so much of mental problems and translates into medical problems also, So we turn that into a gift economy through endowment base, So if you move towards endowment base in it, then we will have a sustained prosperity, peace, and security for everyone. Yeah. So with all the methods that we talked about, the goal and then and linking with the netting systems and so on, then the endowment of the sustainable economy development goals can be achieved. So Steve, thank you very much. I think I've taken a lot of time, maybe, Oh my God, this will be yes. So sorry, I've taken too much of time. So
no, it's absolutely wonderful. Oh yeah, and here's the last slide, everybody. Happy
slide,
baby.
Yeah,
that's the future we're looking for. A happy baby.
Exactly. Why I put this here is that so that we leave a better world for our future generation. And we need to create more of this with a shrinking population, So we are having less and less of these babies. So, and we need to have more of this, and we must leave a better world for them. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to me.
Thank you. If you stop sharing, and then we'll go on, we'll work towards questions. You may want to share in a minute and come back, but let's play. And I'm going to take my privilege, if I could, and I'll make a statement and ask the first two questions, and I'll turn it over to others. And Hobart is helping me with the list of people. First, I want to say the other, Kameel, please join anytime this weekend, and you're going to see the chaos which we're entering into that's causing you to think about us having to have a reset of some time. This weekend, there's going to be a lot of thinking around that, a lot of confusion, and a lot of work we're going to have to do. And we're in the process of doing that thinking now, and that work. And what we see is what you're saying too. We see these limits to growth, and how are we going to get to some sustainability and equilibrium? What we often say is like spaceship Earth. There's got to be a place for everybody, or the love and care for everybody on our spaceship together. So that's the big picture, and we're with you on that. We're figuring it out. We've heard some very clear ideas from you, and which brings up my first two questions I have. The first is, I'll mention with gold, one of the traditional criticisms for gold money is that it's a commodity. It's real, it's tangible. And at Bretton Woods, I think it was Charles de Gaulle that really pushed that we had to be at that so many dollars for gold so there could be a standard. But what we know from history, the gold gets valued at some points, and sometimes gold is plentiful if we're finding more, but it becomes, everybody wants it, it's squeezed, everybody wants the gold, and no commodity money system based on a material. And it even, perhaps for us where we are now, gold and silver working together, maybe it's even a third metal, copper or something we got to think about. But is this where we want Earth? Do we want to get the gold and silver out of the Earth? Is there something we can call gold without it being gold? Or well, how do you feel about this? And that's my first question. I have one other, and then I'll turn it over.
Okay. So thank you so much for the question, Stephen. Whenever I present this, I almost for sure I'll get this question. Okay. Yes. So let me answer. You see, the first, we are suggesting gold to be used as a measure of value. Not actually, even if there's no physical gold, is okay. What do you mean by that? Now, let's say we have palm oil in Malaysia, you have cotton in the US. So I like to trade, yeah? So when we order your cotton, you say, okay, so much of cotton is equivalent to 1 kilogram of gold. So we will say our value, okay, so much of our palm oil is equivalent to 1 kilogram of gold. So we exchange. So we were pricing the cotton and we are pricing our produce here, palm oil, relative to gold. When we exchange, we actually do not need any gold for settlement. So that's the meaning of we are using as a measure of value, right? But of course, we might not be able to exchange exactly 1 kilogram for 1 kilogram. They may be in trade, I export more or I import more, So some balance will be there. So only the balance need to be settled in gold. But it can be always brought forward to the next period of trade and so forth. So this is how so it's a measure of why that is necessary, because it gives you a link when every exchange becomes real. What do you mean by every exchange becomes real? Nobody gets an advantage from the seigniorage of the fiat money. Because the moment there is no link, if I can create a dollar out of nothing, then the one who's creating gets the seigniorage advantage. If it is a closed economy, let's say US, let's say, okay, you don't want the gold backing. I just want the fiat money, just like the proponents of the modern money theory. Now, if you just create the fiat money, just a closed economy is fine. It's fine. But the moment you want to do international trade, then an exchange rate will have to be established. And that will cause a lot of, the demand and supply for a fiat currency both, which can be manipulated. As in 1998, that's how we lost billions of dollars of our national wealth lost to currency speculators through speculation and arbitrage. Actually, if you have time, I can show you the numbers, how much we were lost. I can show you how the speculation was done, how the arbitrage was done. So these things will become possible, even because you may have a dollar and I will have a ringgit. So the moment you want to do international trade, the volatility will come in. And that will be felt by our real economics, in the stock markets and others. Just like Mandl was saying, a lot of this volatility, actually they originate from the exchange rate volatility. So if you go put a gold link, then it fixes the exchange rate. Basically, it becomes a fixed exchange rate regime, right? And also it eliminates long-term inflation from the system. For example, the gold coin I put there, the dinar 4.25 grams of gold. So the 4.25 grams of gold in 1,400 years ago in the Islamic history can buy a sheep. Today, if you have the same coin, you can also buy a sheep. So imagine for 1,400 years how the gold keeps its value intact. Professor Roy Justrom of University of Berkeley, California, has written a book, The Golden Constant, with 400 years of data. He showed that when you price things relative to gold, it is a constant. I actually have a data for 2,000 years in the US, the Britain, and Islamic history. 2,000 years of data. When you price things relative to gold and silver, they show it's a constant. Mm-hmm. See, so this is what we are saying, why the ultimate goal link is necessary. It's not going to give anybody any advantage. No, it's not going to even give the gold producers, let's say South Africa, any advantage. Because gold is not found everywhere. You need to invest money in the mines and then you extract the gold. So the labor theory of value comes in. How much of labor this thing, that's how you value the gold you produce. You take out your gold, I have clean water in my country. We can exchange, no problem. So whether I have a gold in my country or very fertile land, or I have a human resource, which is excellent human resource like Singapore, it's all the same. They're all resources. Mm-hmm. But we are just using gold as a measure of value for us to trade.
Okay, very good. My last thought is, and I'm not going to be able to reach to the international level on this. I'm going to have a thought on it though on Sunday when we discussed this idea of parity, and where we're trying to go in some Sunday conversation is what we call power economy. Rather than trying to make exchanges of equal value, and if there's one trading partner that's suffering, they get the excess benefit, but they have to buy back to the original country in goods. So that the country that has a disadvantage, you go through some clearing processes and you're given the money, but you have to spend that money in the country from where you got it, so that services and goods come from that country and people are working in that country too. And we're calling this a parity tariff or a power economic balance. We're working on it as an idea format. And the reason is in our history in the United States, and you've been here, you're familiar, is we had in our history during the colonial period, the colonies created some very nice fiat money systems where there was no private bank money creation. The interest rates were low, or during the Civil War, the greenbacks were created by the Union side, and it was spent into circulation. And for 20, 30 years, we had greenback parties because it was a public money, not a bank created money, and not created out of bank checkbooks too. And during the North, even though it was a fiat money, and the South had a cotton money that it worked out with England, but a fiat money, even though it had no backing, if it had the faith of the people believing in it, it worked. It was silver and metal backed until 1862, but after 1862, for the remaining of the war, the several years more, it was total fiat money, not backed by anything. The government said it was the money.
Yeah.
And we're playing with this. And how do we work internationally? I don't have all the thoughts and answers right now. I'm working on it myself. We have a number of people with questions. And Howard, you have the first one.
I do. I can let you read it, or I can read it.
Okay, Howard's going to read it.
Okay, yeah, you don't have to change it there.
Okay.
So this comes from Stuart Pittman. Thought experiment. What if some small country found a vast supply of gold? Do they now own everyone else?
If a small country has a vast amount of gold, do they own everyone else?
No. Thank you very much for that question. First, it's a very hypothetical question. We have lived in thousands of years in human history. Scientists tell us gold is actually created during the nebula period, the explosion period, and is scattered throughout the world. So finding gold, even a nugget, is very rare. If you find a large nugget, its value is more than the gold content itself, because it's rare. So, but anyway, if you say you found large amounts of gold, yes, if it all goes back to how much you extract. Let's say I'm a small country, and then I found large amount of gold. I will only extract the gold right amount so that the value has gold. I mean, the value of the gold is intact. If I extract everything, then the value only simply goes down when I do for exchange. So it's in my interest not to extract too much of gold. If I'm a miner, I will just extract the right amount so that when I exchange, I get good things from the world at the right price. Extracting too much will only make me give more of my gold for whatever I'm going to import or get. You see? So first, that's the thing. And historically also, if you notice, what has happened is that how the gold does an automatic balancing. For example, let's say a lot of gold comes into a certain city. So a large amount of gold will go back into jewelries of the women folk, so that only the right amount circulates for and then by doing that, it always keeps the value intact. Okay. So when there is lack of money in the country, for example, gold, then the jewelries will come back as money again. You see? So this is the beautiful, there's an automatic adjustment mechanism when we use gold as on the monetary structure. But of course, you can link it to anything actually. For example, you have a cotton. backed by, currency backed by cotton. It's fine. In Germany, during the time of the need to solve the economic shortage of in money, they did this company that linked money, it's a company issued money token, but link it to coal. You see coal, yeah. So the convertibility is there. Like Venezuela was playing with currency, cryptocurrency backed by its oil. It's also fine. But all these commodities, they have a bit more problem compared to gold and silver. You know why? Because gold and silver, there's no like seasonal demands for it. If I link it to oil, during the winter, you consume more oil, to do the heating and so on. So the value of oil will go up during, so there'll be seasonal demands up and down. But gold is not, it is actually, people love gold, but it has very little use actually. We can't even eat it, is it? So it has a constant, it keeps the value constant, whether it is winter or whether it's summer, and so forth. So that is my simple answer to that question.
Okay.
Right. I have another written question.
Yeah.
Sorry. Could you please clarify what you mean by netting arrangement system?
Yeah, that's a good.
Okay, netting arrangement is basically it is just like the local exchange trading schemes, schemes, yeah, where when we buy and sell, we just record the transactions. For example, let's say I buy something from Steve, so the system will only record a credit for Steve and a debit for me. And Steve buys, let's say, similar to from you, and then there'll be a credit for you and now a debit for Steve. And then let's say, and also, and when we do this kind of things, buying and selling, so we just record the debits and credits. Periodically, let's say after a month or every 3 months, we net off between the debits and credits and only settle the difference.
Okay.
So it's almost like a credit card system, but the credit card system only records your expenditure. They're very clever. They don't want to record your income so that they can charge you. If you don't pay in time, they can charge you interest charge and a late payment fee, you see? Right?
Mm-hmm.
But here, what we do is we also record your income so that a netting can take place.
Mm.
So when you do that credit with a netting like this, so so you can do a trading, buy and sell. You can do international trade even when you don't have money, even when you don't have international reserves. You can still do a trading. Then you net off and then we settle it or bring the balances to the next period.
Okay. I imagine a country would have a way of sharing more goods of what it can afford to help
Exactly.
those balances.
Correct. Yes.
I think Greg Coleridge had the next question. Is Greg available? Greg, can you unmute? Where is Greg?
It's in the chat, Stephen.
Oh,
Wrote it.
you know what?
It's his question is, if the money supply is based on the gold supply, then how can countries increase their production if they don't have enough gold? Wouldn't they become even more dependent on the World Bank, IMF, and the other international corporate-backed financial institutions?
Very, very good question. Okay, thank you very much for the question. May I answer, Steve?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So basically, it's a good question. You see, if you notice, yes, the money supply will be actually limited by the amount of gold you have. Yes, okay, because every dollar that you issue, there must be a linking, just like the gold standard. So $35 that you issue, there must be 1 ounce of gold behind. So anybody who comes for redeemability, you can actually fulfill that obligation. But will that limit your economic trade and so forth? The answer is no. Why? Because that's where the netting comes in. So the netting is there to allow people to buy and sell without using money first, just credit. Because I have some skills, I have some goods to I produce for the economy, and others also similar. So let's do the trade first and just record our transactions. because a lot of transactions ultimately can be net off for every person. So then you will find the amount of gold that you actually need at the end is very small. You know, I've got formulas, that, using goal programming is goal programming, where you look at for every country, what they can export, what they need to import, then how much they can export, how much they need to import. Then we put that into a metric, the goal programming will come and tell what is the best form of trade between these countries that actually minimizes the amount of money that one needs to settle the international trade. You'll find it's actually very small when you look at the actual number, because economic well-being, what we need is actually the goods and the services that we exchange ourselves. These are the things actually give us the economic well-being, not the money. We can't even eat the dollar. We cannot even eat the gold. So the gold, the money, they are just measure of value, which we can just net off in the real economy, and we can have a good life.
Yeah, we're thinking about those ideas too. Joe Polito, I unmuted you. You have the next question. And then
Thank you.
Frank will come next.
Thanks very much. That was extremely thought-provoking.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
Before I ask my question, I thought Stuart's question was really good, but he did an even better job on commenting on Steve Walsh's suggestion about using copper instead of gold. Steve said, "There goes everyone's copper plumbing."
Yes.
Best line of the night. My question relates to your suggestion about a gift economy or endowment.
Yeah, endowment. Yeah.
My impression is that would fit very nicely with the NEED Act. In the NEED Act, this is my interpretation, addresses the economic rights of people. It would provide all the essentials, health, education,
Yes.
Housing, affordable housing, etc. And of course, it would also address global warming.
Yes.
Is that a fair interpretation of where that, the spirit of that item that you mentioned? Thank you.
Can you please repeat that again? So sorry.
Well, I'm asking if, like John did a very nice job outlining the NEED Act.
Yes.
And my feeling is that
Kameel didn't hear that.
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, go ahead. But Joe, can you make the question anyhow?
yes, the need from the way John described the NEED Act, I would say that it meets the economic needs and rights of the people. That it prioritizes what we spend money on, and it makes them universal goods. And my question is, since everybody, would have access to them, be a much more equitable society, my question is, does that initiative fit in with your notion of the gift economy?
Okay, I get your question. Thank you so much. Okay, in a gift economy, indirectly it fulfills that. For example, let's say there is a need for a bridge, for example, in a society. So with the wealthy in the economy, what they do is that they will contribute in order to build the bridge. Sometimes they do it, or they normally want to do it on their own so that they can name it after themselves or their parents' name or something like that. It works like that. So if you remember the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the highest is actually social recognition, not wealth. Once you have the wealth, what you want is social recognition. So the social recognition is actually obtained through providing these kind of things to the society. So in Islamic history, they've done, like utilities, giving water free, water, utilities, other utilities, infrastructure, and so on. So these things will be automatically prioritized because the wealthy will try to give what the society needs most. And they will go for that using endowment, you see? So, so in that way, a lot of things will be, actually the needs of the people will be covered, the needs. So even, for example, okay, this is, let's say, a cemetery, for example. So anyone who dies, you don't have to worry. Oh, if I don't have a plot, where will I be buried? In today's world, you're not sure if you do not own your own burial plot, and if the person dies, you might end up as a specimen in a medical school. It can happen. So what I'm trying to say is that the through endowment system, the social security of almost every person is actually kind of guaranteed. And it also prioritizes the needs. Yeah. So yes, I would say the answer is yes. The gift economy it does that. Yeah.
And one of the things we're trying to get to, Kameel, is that with the NEED Act is government can spend money into circulation, it can loan some money back into circulation,
Yes.
or you can give money to the states, or you can give money to all the people, and
Yeah.
that would be where the seigniorage goes, and that would be sort of gift-like. There's some overlap there.
Yeah.
But that's where we're playing, and maybe that's a step 2
Yeah.
to 3 for you rather than. I'm going to unmute Franz, and he's next now. Okay,
No,
Franz.
I would, Steve, I would actually agree with that. If you notice the hierarchy, the steps that I showed earlier in my slide for the struggle for movement for monetary justice, that actually comes in line with, in my opinion, the public banking and sovereign money concepts. So if the government is allowed to create the money, then this is what you'll do. It's supposed to do. You can use it for welfare, for the old folks home or whatever, and everything. And also you can use it for lending the money to businesses, for working capital financing, and so forth. So I think yes, it's the initial step. We see goal only as our final target.
Right. Okay, thank you. We might live at some lower levels for a while.
Yeah, Steve, I have, we at Movement for Monetary Justice, not only we discuss this, we also talk about the right education system necessary for economic well-being. And also we talk about the development of the gift economy, the endowment-based economy. We have a model for that. And it is actually working in certain parts of the world in reality, especially in Indonesia. So one of these days, if you like to hear what is being done there, the gift economy thing, maybe I would like to share with you. Yeah.
Okay, we have people here that are very curious, so you may be asked. So thank you for maybe doing that. I'm going to give it to Franz now.
At the first place, I think this was a really impressive presentation.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.
Well documented with statistics, but more importantly, with strong arguments.
Thank you.
That includes so many dimensions. Particularly also, I think, the population angle.
Yeah.
Really, ingenious to bring that in there, and so important.
Yeah.
Now, here I have to bring you a difficult question.
Oh, okay. I hope I can answer
that a monetary standard is to be based upon a value, upon a stable value.
Value, yes.
A real value.
Correct.
And of course, in the past, these values were based upon gold and silver and other minerals. And still people like Judy Shelton and others, they still are, and there is in the US here, there is a whole group of people who are still really fighting for the gold standard.
Yes.
As part of a debt-based system. So
correct.
What you are suggesting for the gold standard, that could be possible.
Yes.
But what about this one? Given that we are in climate constrained times, and particularly now also with this COP26 going on, people are getting more aware of this. I think it is so important for us in the monetary field to see how we can make a contribution. And so in terms of a monetary standard, I would suggest that it would be a specific measure of decarbonization. And that could be different ways. One of them could be a specific tonnage of CO2e per person, so
Yeah.
that every nation can be evaluated on this. And of course, when you say per person, as The Guardian was telling today, that some people have 3 times in the developed world, in the high income countries, have 30 times more higher footprint than people in Malaysia. And so what is your consideration then of having a monetary standard for the 21st century that is based upon a money-based system that you have been proposing, and also and one can also add on to this an inequality reducing fiscal system, but then an international monetary system that is based on decarbonization. So the specific measures of decarbonization could be a real value as a basis for people to trade. And that would also resolve, and that is something for Stephen, would resolve the parity issue. Because you have an international system. And so what I think is needed, I could agree with about 90% of what you are proposing. However, I would put it in a larger framework, and I would call it a paradigm shift that we need. And that paradigm shift would be based upon a monetary decarbonization standard. It would be based upon a digitalized global currency, and also a balance of payment system that would account for both the financial and also the ecological credits and debts of countries. So it would be really a paradigm shift, in my opinion. What's your opinion about that?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the interesting question. So my view is like this. You see, if you link the money to decarbonization and very technical things where even the computation becomes very difficult, I think that's where another volatility might even come in between countries when you link into carbonization. But I totally agree with you that we need a paradigm shift. The paradigm shift that I suggested you notice is that it is actually the pricing of things in gold and silver. That's where the success lies, pricing. Because the moment you price, let's say in dollar, but behind like gold, like for example in Bretton Woods, you know what will happen? This kind of what we have observed. A country will tend to print more dollars than the amount of gold they had. A country printing more ringgit than the dollars we had and so on. But when you reverse it, we do the pricing in gold, and even if you have the dollars and currencies behind, they will start to take a backseat. You see? And you will find a lot of stability coming in, and easy valuation would come in the moment we move to pricing. So what is actually against this pricing? What is actually against this goal is actually the legal tender law. So the challenge. So any country that has a legal tender law that says, if I pay you in dollar, you must accept it, because there is a legal tender for all payments on all debts and so forth. In Malaysia, anyone pays me my debt in ringgit, the law says I have to accept it. So the moment we have a legal tender law, then the classical well-known Gresham's law will kick in. The bad money will drive out the good money out. So if you try to circulate gold as money, it will fail. Okay, so the greatest challenge for this is actually the legal tender law. So we need to find how to loosen it. Maybe using a cooperative or maybe a chamber of commerce. We say, okay, this is a payment system only for this group. It is not for the national listing. So we are moving like that, you know, that we will start only for like a chamber of commerce or a cooperative that has many different kinds of businesses, so that the transactions take place. Then you go for a gold payment system where the measure of value is gold itself, not a national currency that is backed by gold, no. By gold itself, and in my thinking that you actually solve the problem already. So the challenge is you move that, and then all this carbonization and everything, a lot of things will disappear. For example, you see the housing. Look at the housing market. The housing developers and the bankers, they actually, in my opinion, they're colluding. For example, I'm a housing developer. In the classical system, when you have a gold payment system, a house will be ordered. Someone will want to buy a house when they actually want to buy a house. Then they'll order a builder to, okay, I need a house. Okay, you build the house. So resources will be taken from the earth in order to build the house because the person needs it. But today what they are doing is that because the money is created out of nothing, they are just creating the money out of nothing and give to the loan to a housing developer. And the developer just, with the newly created money, they just extract all the resources in the needed resources, and they build all the homes even though they're not needed. Nobody has requested for the house, demanded for the house, but you are supplying it first. But you are already used a lot of the national resources and you have created a lot of carbon footprints here and there. And you will notice, because you are creating excess money in the system, and it creates a bubble in the housing. So what is a bubble? More fiat money is just pricing the limited houses. So what you notice is that in the housing market, there is an excess of supply, a glut in the market, and yet the prices go up. In economics, when there's an excess supply, price should go down. Why is there a market where when there's an excess supply and the price is still rising? It's because that is the sector that is absorbing the excess money created in the system, and it is causing the bubble. We use the term housing bubble. But why the bubble is there in the first place? So it is the interest portion of the fiat money that is created out of nothing, that is plundering the resources of the nation, and you are putting the excess in it and causing the carbon problems, and climate change and so forth. If you go back to the real money, you'll find a lot of things will go back to equilibrium.
Yeah, I think we could continue this discussion because I have several things to make, but I think there are other people who also want to ask questions.
Yeah, we'll go forward, and Franz, we'll continue with this tomorrow when you talk. We have two more people that are going to have their questions. I'm going to hold it. They are Mark Young and Peshwak Kokobian. Which one of you want to go first? Do you have time for two more questions? Come in. Two more questions?
Sure. No problem. Yeah.
Which of you want to go first? I'm not. You both agree.
We got Mark Young spotlighted.
Okay, Mark Young, we're going to give you first, and then Peshwak, you get the last question.
Dr. Meera, good to see you again.
Nice to see you, man.
Two questions. The first one is, what is your opinion on if commodities are used to back money, like you said, it could be gold, silver, cotton, anything, because it is a commodity? If you look at gold prices over the last 30 years, they've increased by 400% or 500%.
Yeah. Correct.
So in the 90s, it was around $400 an ounce. Now it's almost $2,000 an ounce.
Correct.
I want to know your opinion on how using any commodity, not just gold, would affect those commodity prices, and then what effect do you think that would have on the system you're describing? The second question is, in your graph where you show the real economy and then the amount of money and how they diverge.
Yeah.
It seems like to me in that graph, what you're suggesting is that we bring that money supply down to equal the real economy.
Go in tandem here. Correct. It should grow in tandem with the real economy.
Right. And so I guess the question is there, and this has to do with the sector and the bubbles and money not going into the real economy, but should we be pushing that real economy number up instead of bringing that top line down? Because what I see is that there's not enough money going into what I would say nonprofit activities, which is, to me, is what creates that sector inflection and sector inflation. For instance, building a road or building a bridge is not a for-profit enterprise. And so money goes, because of the interest requirements and everything else, tends to go to where money can be made. And so I just wanted to hear your thoughts on bringing that bottom line up instead of bringing that top line down. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for the two questions. So, Steve, shall I answer? Yeah. So, Mark, the first question that you asked, whether it's okay to back the money with any commodity, my answer would be first, yes. The reason is, the moment you have any commodity money backing backed by any commodity, the whole idea in economic justice is that when we exchange goods among ourselves through trade or exchange, import and export, we exchange equal things. I mean, both of us value that, okay, this what we exchange are equal in value. So therefore, so long whatever the money is backing, so long we identify that, okay, this is a fair trade, then it will be a fair trade. Just like a barter exchange. That's why I would support any barter exchanges. Okay, so every transaction, if I give you something, I will take something of equal value. But if you give me pieces of paper that is printed by somebody, then I would say it's unfair, because it gives you an unfair advantage when you print money. So that's the reason why you and me cannot print money at home, because counterfeiting, it is illegal, because it gives an unfair benefit to the one who uses the money for the first time. So I was saying, if it is necessary to create money out of nothing, then it should belong to the government. I mean, to the people. So that's why we are supporting public banking and sovereign money. You see, but we are not supporting that for banks creating money, because that is private. Commercial banks are privately, owned. So how come we are allowing the private bank to create money, but I cannot print money at home? You see? So that is the major issue. But if you put in the natural this thing, let's say anybody, can create back the currency they are issuing backed by real thing, you will notice automatically gold and silver will dominate. Simply because many reasons. Because they cannot be destroyed by chemically this thing. Take gold, for example. If I drop a gold bar into the sea, even after 1,000 years, if you go and pick it up, it will be still gold, exactly. Because gold is found in earth as an element itself, not a compound, not like iron. It's an iron oxide, a rust. You have to take out the rust, and then you have to remove the oxygen component. Then only you get the final iron and so forth. Gold, you extract it as gold itself. So it doesn't react with acids. It doesn't react with climate. You cannot burn it. You cannot. So if you have a safe at home, you have a lot of dollar stacks and a gold bar, and if the safe got burned, all your money will become carbon. But the gold will be gold. So for that reason, that gold will dominate, and a small quantity has a large value. That's additional benefit. That gold is rare is actually a positive thing, not a negative thing. That it gives a small quantity a large value. You see? So that's the reason. While I support, yes, you can back with anything. We have oil, you can back your currency with oil and so on. But in the natural dynamics, gold and silver will ultimately dominate. We have seen that for thousands of years in human history in almost all civilizations. Yeah, number one. Then the number two, your question was, again, what was the second one?
I was asking about your chart and whether or not the economy needs to be brought up instead of the top line being brought down.
Correct. You see, Mark, the one that was going off tangent, the money and debt, it is because of the fiat nature of money and interest components. You create out of nothing, and then you're giving to households and businesses and governments on compound interest. That's a very powerful position to be in, actually. You are different from the rest of the world. You watch during because of that, you watch during this COVID, crisis. Last year, 2020, we had almost lockdown in the entire world. All businesses showing losses, but there's only one industry that shows billions of dollars of profit. You know what? Which one? It's the banking. Why? Because the banking, you have given the right to create money out of nothing, and the advantage is when people default. So they report billions of dollars of profits, and they just give out a lot of dividends and bonuses. In Malaysia, one chairman was given like 680 million ringgit in bonus last year, when the rest of the country is, in deep problem, So this is the what you are telling. We need to make it balanced, and the real economy, it's difficult to bring it in tandem with that. Why? Because you notice the monetary and debt was growing exponentially. You can check that almost for any country with data. Your IMF data, you go to the IMF, you plot the graph, you use the economic techniques and try to measure the equation of the lines. You'll find they're all exponential, okay? Can you work exponential real economy? Can I work 7 hours today, tomorrow exponentially 9 hours, the next day I work 11 hours, 24 hours? Can we do that? No. Human beings need to have we need rest, we need to work, we need balance. You cannot match the monetary system that grows exponentially. In natural world, almost nothing grows exponential. Ultimately, they will become taper off. Nothing grows exponentially, except the scientists are telling the universe is expanding exponentially. So there's nothing else. So how can we match the exponential growth of debt? It's almost impossible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Peshwa.
Thank you for your great presentation, Dr. Meera.
Thank you.
I just wanted to, if I'm not mistaken, recall that for a country, it does not need necessarily to have internally gold standard. It could be a gold, it could be a silver standard, which basically is a labor standard. And historically, in Islamic world, dinar means gold coin, and a dirham means the silver coin. Okay.
Yeah.
However, this tradition was the same tradition in the Western world before the Medicis and the Rothschild take over the banking system. If you look at the literature of the Dollar of Middle Ages, the Dollar of Middle Ages, it's a small book by Dr. Carlo Cipolla, which talks about that different communities in the Middle Ages, they have different silver standard, which means that different labor standard or productivity rate. So internally, you don't need to have a gold standard, okay? You just need to have something which is connected to the labor, the goods and production, goods and services production. So that's why I just wanted to clarify that, if I'm not wrong.
Thank you. I totally agree with you. I mentioned earlier that when you are doing a closed economy, then you don't have to link it to gold, because the money is being created by the government by itself, just like a public banking or sovereign money. The problem comes when you are going to do international trade.
Index, I had to hold off.
You see? So you need to make the link between the exchange rate a constant. That means when it's not a constant, then just like Alexander Mandl was saying, a lot of volatility, economic volatility starts from the exchange rate volatility. You see? So I totally agree with you. And then the bimetallism is for example, when for most of the trades, people use silver, even in Islamic history and this thing, they use silver for market. Only for large transactions, like you're going to buy a house or this thing, we use gold. So gold and silver are very nice components, both of them, but today, with electronic payment systems, it doesn't have to be physical coins. The gold coins, the gold can be with an operator, like a bank or whoever, who are doing a payment system. And we use all mobile payment systems and everything. I can transfer 0.001 gram of gold to you, which was not possible in those days. So I can, even for small quantities, we can have, we can have electronic payment systems. So many have started this. Using cryptocurrencies backed by gold. There's a bank in Turkey called Takas Bank already doing that. And then here we have e-wallets now cropping up. that is actually gold payment system. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Steve, you are muted.
Thank you. I couldn't bring up my greenback conversation
Okay.
because it was a closed system.
Yeah.
And, I was trying to get in another angle, but I had to hold off.
Okay.
This has just been wonderful. Ahamed Kameel,
Thank you. Thank you.
Professor Meera, thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
We have a lot to continue and we want to get to know you better. So
Thanks,
we
Steve.
we all say thank you.
Thank you very much, and have a good night to everyone. Actually, it's morning here.
Yeah, good morning. You have a good brunch or a breakfast now.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye.
If this video was helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe for new video notifications. Please consider donating at monetary.org/donate. Don't forget to check us out on Twitter at AMI Monetary or on our website